Welcome everyone to Capital Conversations. I'm Colin Day, Certified Financial Planner Professional. With me today, John Biedenstein. John, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great.
How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Wow.
So,
we were commenting just a moment ago about how good we look in our very colorful shirts. I'm wearing pink on Wednesdays. John wearing his purple.
we didn't want to wear the same, so.
Right. Yeah, that would be embarrassing, right? So John, we are doing our first series of podcasts. So whether you're able to see our colorful shirts or not, if you're listening to the audio version, this is the first series podcast we're doing where we're taking a topic and we're gonna split it out into at least 3 different episodes. And the reason is because there's just so much to talk about regarding this particular subject matter. So what we're going to talk about are the 6 questions we're hearing from soon-to-be and current retirees. So we discussed this actually at a recent client event, John, and we got some pretty good feedback in regards to what we talked about there. If you had to sum up what we talked about in one word, or maybe one phrase to make it a little bit easier about what we're hearing from this particular age bracket of, let's say, like from 50 all the way up into 70s or 80s, how might you describe how people are feeling right now regarding market, economy, socially? What would you put it at?
I think everyone has a little bit of a concern in regards to, the amount that they've set aside for retirement. Is it going to be enough? And what are these factors that are impacting that? Inflation, some of the things we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. So the concern just adds to a big part of what we do, which is focus on planning.
Right, exactly. So let's jump into the first one, which is, will blank affect my ability to retire? So again, will blank affect my ability to retire? Concern. I thought that's an excellent way to put this, because there is something going on right now, and we're recording this at the end of May 2023, but there is always something going on that makes us feel uneasy as humans, not just soon-to-be retirees or current retirees, but just human beings. And there's always going to be something. So lots of times when I'm picking up the phone and I'm talking to a client, they're going to be letting me know what is the current thing that is bugging them. So we talked about some unprecedented things that have occurred over the past couple of years during our presentation. We talked about COVID. We talked about in the past couple months bank failures. More recently, the debt ceiling conversation. John, what are you hearing about? What if you had to say, what was the one thing that many people are contacting you about personally or asking you questions out on the street as a financial advisor? What would you say that is?
It's 2 things. I think number one, it's the high inflationary period that we're going through. Mm-hmm. So it just seems like things cost more.
Yeah.
And the other thing is with the market uncertainty, is it for an for a person that's in retirement or getting close, when do I want to take my withdrawals? Mm-hmm. And is there ways that I can do that effectively so that it kind of levels things off?
Right. Yeah. The whole reason we wanted to broach this question, of course, is because there's always subject matter that is going to affect us. As I try to remind folks when they're watching financial news, they're just trying to get you through the ad break. That's all they really care about. If you're watching the nightly news, it's why they don't lead with the puppies being adopted from the shelter or the people being rescued from the burning building. They lead with death, destruction, harmful things that are going on. That's what keeps your eyes, unfortunately. And so, when people are worried about being in retirement, existing in retirement, when these unprecedented things are happening to us, I just like to remind folks that, hey, we're always going to be in unprecedented times. We might have history to fall back on, but we probably will just incur something else in another 3-month news cycle as well. So why worry so much about the things that are out of our control?
Correct. And it's really which is going on to what you're talking about, which is worry about the things you can't control.
Yeah.
Not the things you can.
Exactly. So John, why don't you go ahead and you give us number 2?
Number 2 is, will inflation wreck my retirement? And again, with the high inflationary period we're going through, again, it's unprecedented. But am I going to have enough to save for retirement? Now we know, is what I set aside going to be enough? Mm-hmm. So, the inflationary period we're going through right now, again, trends have indicated that it's a period we're going through, and things might come down. We went through a long period of time with very, very low inflation and then just skyrocketed up. And we've seen it come back a little bit. So the important thing is, timing your withdrawals from the retirement account, having those buckets of money that you can withdraw money from, a Roth account, a retail or a wealth management account, and pull the money out of that taxable retirement plan or IRA, pull that when it's really needed. And again, planning ahead is really critical.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening to this podcast and might not have the chart in front of you, one of the things we talked about was if you're familiar with looking at a recent chart of inflation, we're seeing that, we started lower and then it goes up and to the right, so to speak, meaning that inflation kind of shot up in the year 2022. Now, thankfully, towards the end of 22, heading into 2023, it's been cascading down very nicely, thankfully. But one of the things that I showed our group that we were presenting on was what's called the 30-year break-even inflation rate. And really, this is more like a poll than anything else. That if I was going to invest in like a 30-year bond, what is the interest rate that I need in that bond to battle inflation? What do I think that is? And it doesn't look like the inflation bubble that we've been in over the past, let's call it, 17, 18 months. What it looks like is just kind of a flat line. Yeah, it does go up a little bit, but then it's kind of coming back to what we saw basically back in the early 2010s. So the idea there is that the more space you give yourself to consider the use of your money. So if you're a pre-retiree, meaning you're thinking about retirement, trying to plan that out, we've got the space to really consider the fact that, yeah, inflation doesn't look great, but if we think about our money lasting us from age 60 all the way to age 90, because we all hope to live very long and fruitfully in retirement, well, the inflation picture doesn't look as bad. Yes, it's a blip. Yes, it hurts. Any increase in what we think the expected inflation rate might be could be harmful. But when it came to understanding the time period in which we might be using these funds, well, that gives me a little bit of solace, at least as a financial advisor, to say, hey, long-term opinion is that it's relatively flat. It's not increasing to a dramatic sum where it's going to be detrimental to most. So I think it's a good place to maybe pause for this particular edition of the podcast. John, any last words you want to communicate about those two topics? Again, we talked just about inflation, and then we talked about the ability to stay retired.
Yeah, again, the big thing is plan. Work with us, work with your financial advisor, and plan ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be surprised.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. As always, please remember, investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Correct Capital Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Correct Capital Wealth Management and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Correct Capital Wealth Management unless a client service agreement is in place.